And what about your whole journey to like marketing? Like, how did you get inspired and like you thought like this is like the thing I want to do?
Mm, that's a good question. So
Mhm.
I never like planned to like I was never like, yeah, I want to do marketing. This is my thing. Like I never had that, one dream.
Mhm.
And it was not like a very straightforward path or anything, but it sort of like just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Mhm.
So I have a background in journalism and in content, and I still love writing. Um, and I write a lot. Like I really, really love writing, and I think that has really helped me to sort of like. I think copywriting is a great background for marketing in general because it sort of like forces you to, you know, you know, sort of like forces you to understand what the others are, what your customers are after, and so on. So I think that really helped me to sort of like get into marketing. But yeah, I have background in journalism, and then I sort of like, I don't know, just pivoted from there. Worked in another agency, and then I found my current job actually on Twitter. Like I found my like two of my latest jobs on Twitter, so or in LinkedIn on LinkedIn. So yeah, I would probably recommend getting active on social media if you're looking for a job. So yeah, it kind of just happened.
Yeah, that is really interesting because like whenever I talk to like all of these marketing professionals and like whenever the story of like starting marketing, like everyone like tried to end up somewhere else and then they ended up like in marketing. There's no, like everyone was like I was a storyteller, I was writing books, or like I had my own startup, or I am an entrepreneur, and like from there then they end up like in marketing, and that is like super interesting.
Yeah, and like I think marketing is a very good background for basically anything. Like because I actually want to have my own business one day, but I don't want to I'm planning to do it in 7 years or 10 years, not like next year. So
Exactly.
like basically the things that I'm learning right now when I'm doing marketing are like it's just such a good foundation for everything else, basically. So yeah.
Mhm. I just we can wait for 4 more minutes for people to join in and then we can start. By that time, I'll just keep on sharing this screen.
Yeah, and you can ask me
Mhm.
questions meanwhile and I can give you stupid answers. So I'm seeing some familiar faces there. Hi, Mika. That's my colleague joining.
Hey, hey. So, what are like some of the things that are really challenging or like interesting to you in your current job that you're doing? Of course, it's like very broad question, but like just in general.
Yeah, so but that's actually a very good question because I think one of the most common struggles in marketing is how you can find the right balance between, let's say, brand marketing and things like awareness, being top of mind, positioning, and so on, and then the direct response and like lead gen marketing, and because the other one is very hard to sort of like you can't really tell whether it's working. Like there are some indicators, you're getting more inbound leads or so on, uh, but you can't really prove that it's working. You can't create fancy attribution models online or anything. And on the other hand, when you're doing PPC or stuff like that, it's really easy to say, yeah, we're not getting leads or we are getting leads, and finding the right balance there, because obviously you need both. So that's one of the like key struggles, I would say. And on top of that, like on top of the fact that that's hard itself, I need to convince my customers because I work in a marketing agency. So it's like a yeah, it's double as hard for me.
Of course. And what did you say? Like also the marketing, the part of it that people think that it is just selling and not doing like not anything real, but like it is some kind of convincing people. What is your take on that? What do you say? Like when customers are like, yeah, of course they're going to say that it is good because they are marketing people.
Yeah, do you mean like how do I overcome this type of
Mhm.
like claims? Um, I think we actually are lucky in the sense that none of our clients are so smart that they don't really say these things.
Yeah, and
Like they truly believe that like marketing
yeah,
can make all the difference.
marketing has moved and shifted a lot to like providing value. Like that has been so much a common saying, like in the whole marketing scenario, that every company is talking about, like how to provide value to customers. Like how do you provide value through content? How do you provide value through products? How do you provide value through your service? Like all of these conversations have changed so much to like providing value. I think people now understand that this is where the business world is actually going to.
Yeah, definitely. And also that marketing should start from the product and the business strategy and not from, what is actually marketing communications, So it should be, positioning is marketing, if your product, even your pricing is marketing. Like freemium, if you have a freemium model, that's actually marketing. That's more like an ebook than a pricing model, actually. So yeah, marketing is basically everywhere, or it should be everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we can start in a few minutes. And just to start out, I would request everyone to keep their mic closed. But however, if you have any questions, you can always type in the chat section so that we can clear out it like in the middle of the presentation and not at the last. And also we will have about around 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, you can also ask them at the end. And also in the middle, whenever you have any question, you can write it in the chat and I will ask Anna the questions. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I will stop presenting now and let Anna present her slides.
All right, just a second. I'm just gonna do this. Okay, you should be seeing my screen now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right. So yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here because this is one of my favorite topics. If you're following me on LinkedIn, you'll probably see me ranting about these things. And I also wrote a blog post about this topic a while ago. And it's been quite successful, so it clearly resonates with people. But yeah, so today...
Do you want to share your link in the comment section also?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you want me to share your LinkedIn account in the comment section also?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, I love to connect on LinkedIn. So yeah, please add me. Yeah, so basically what we're going to talk about today is how to step up your marketing, and especially B2B marketing, because that's where I come from, with truly actionable customer insights. And it's a long title, but I'm going to break it down to pieces, and I'm going to explain you what it means to have customer insights, what it means that they are truly actionable, and what it means to step up your marketing game. So basically there are 3 parts to this. Just a couple of words about myself. So I'm, just added my Twitter and LinkedIn handles here. So please add me. I love to geek out about everything related to SaaS and growth marketing online and also everything else. I'm a growth marketing strategist at Advance B2B. We specialize in B2B SaaS subscription and tech companies, and we help them grow sustainably, nail their positioning and messaging, go abroad and stuff like that. So here are some of our, no, not here, but on the next slide are some of our happy clients. So if you want to know who we work with, just go to our website or take a look at this slide. But yeah, we're 40 people currently located in Helsinki. So these are some of our clients. As you can see, we work with some cool companies such as Script and Salesforce. So also Virta is one of my favorite Finnish startups, or actually to scale up. But yeah, you should check them out. Anyways, here's the agenda for today. And as he said earlier, if you have any questions, just please put them on the chat, and I will do my best to answer them while we go. But basically, part 1: what are customer insights really, and why they matter? Because this is, you really, you wouldn't believe it, but you actually have to start from the very scratch. sometimes. Like not all the businesses understand why they need to understand their customers. And part 2 is for how to get actually like truly actionable customer insights, and part 3 is for applying the findings finally. Cool. So let's start with part 1. What are customer insights really and why they matter? That's the number 1 question. So why do we need those insights? So here you're looking at the slide from a ProfitWell study from a couple of years back. I don't remember which year exactly, but they asked 5,000 companies, and I don't remember how many customers of these companies. It's probably on the next slide. They asked what these companies are building and what the customers think these companies are building. So basically what the customers thought they were buying or purchasing. And if you just carefully look at this slide here, I'm going to switch to this, to the next slide in a minute or in a second. This is what the companies think they were building. Yeah, this is what those 1.2 million customers apparently thought that the companies were building. So there is like, I mean, it's as if they were looking at the different product, as if they were looking and talking about the different product and different companies. I mean, this is, don't tell me that I'm the only one who's terrified. Like, this is terrible. This is truly terrible. Imagine all those clients and the customer and the companies are, I mean, they're basically talking about different things. Customers are buying X and companies are selling Y or something along those lines. So that's something that's clearly a problem. And if that's not enough, the same study from ProfitWell actually revealed that companies that invest in ongoing customer research or getting to know their clients are actually able to grow 2 to 3 times faster than those that don't invest on it. That's amazing, I think. Another study from Radix Communications say that B2B marketers who talk to their clients on a regular basis are who don't talk to their clients on a regular basis are 27% less likely to be happy with their content's business results. Not as impressive number, but still it's almost 30%. So that's something. A customer research expert, Caitlin Bourguin, I guess that's how her name is pronounced, actually says that the companies that don't conduct customer research at all, the companies that conduct customer research are up to 466% more successful than those who don't do that. That's an amazing number. I don't know how true that is, but I can imagine it's close to the truth. And finally, according to, this was from Co-Scheduling, the most successful marketers are a lot more likely to conduct audience research at least once per quarter. So basically on an ongoing basis. So like sort of like following on from all these statistics, it's kind of clear that you really need to know your customers to be able to grow, and how this basically, and this has everything to do with the way you market, with the way you sell, with the way you build your product, with the way you align your company around your customer value, or you don't do that. So we're probably all of us, we're probably starting to see a pattern here. I love this one quote from the CEO and founder of Drift, David Cancel. You probably know him. If you don't, please go to LinkedIn and follow him. He's genius. He said this one time that I love data, but it's like driving a car using only the rearview mirror. It tells you what happened, not what is going to happen. And that's why you need to talk to your clients to get those actual insights. So that's basically why you need customer research. You are not able to grow sustainably unless you know your clients. This is basically what the statistics are saying. And yet, this is what most companies do. So this is personally my favorite memes, because it's not a meme. It's basically a representation of reality. So what do your clients want? We don't know. So how do we get more sales? Or how do we grow? Or how to get there? Let's start a blog or something as random as that. Like, companies just keep doing things that are not based on any real data, not based on any real information, not based on any real insights. And that's what's bugging me so much. So that's why we're here today, because this is the situation. And based on those statistics, these companies are not going to be able to grow at all. So what's the problem here? If you just think about it for a second, if you don't know your clients and you're a marketer, how are you going to make sure that your marketing is going to resonate with your ideal clients? You're not going to be able to do that. So the problem, as a result, marketers actually they just keep acquiring just any clients, basically, just anyone with a heartbeat. And essentially what that means is that marketers are pouring poor fit customers into a leaky bucket, because those clients that are not a good fit, not good fit for you, they will churn, they will not stay with you, they won't be happy, they will be burdening your customer support, they won't be profitable for you. So it looks good when you're acquiring a lot of customers or getting a lot of leads in, but in the long run, it's going to be a big problem. And this is what we're seeing constantly with our clients as well. So basically, what marketers are doing, they are just acquiring random leads that are not probably a good fit for you, that are not going to even close. And if they close, marketers are letting customer success or whoever else to clean up the mess when these customers need help or when they're unhappy or whatever. They're just not being responsible for getting like actual good fit customers. So yeah, so much about the rant, but this is the fact. Like, this is how it is right now. Just a couple of words about why it's a problem. So if you think about churn, that's the biggest problem for especially SaaS companies and subscription-based companies that I work with, but also for other companies, they just don't tend to think about churn as churn. They sort of like tend to overlook it. So if let's say your monthly churn was a bit over 5%, let's say, it doesn't sound too bad, because after all, 95% of all your clients are going to stay with you, right? But already by looking at this chart here, you're probably starting to see the issue, because monthly churn rate of 5%, 5.67, I think in this chart, means that you have an annual churn rate of 50%. And that means that you're not going to be able to grow. So basically more of your clients are leaving you than you're able to get new clients. And that's going to be a big problem, because customer acquisition costs are getting higher, and you really need to pay some attention to the clients that are unhappy and so on. So it's going to be a big problem. That's why we really need to understand who are the best customers for us, how we're going to get them, how we're going to sell to them, and how we're going to keep them, and how we're going to increase their lifetime value so that they're actually going to be super profitable for us, but also happy, because that's also about, that's eventually, it's all about happiness, customer happiness. If they're happy, they're going to stay. If they're unhappy, they're not going to stay. Cool. So as Lincoln Murphy, one of my favorite characters, let's say, from 16 Ventures, says, churn is an indication that something else is wrong. Churn is not actually a problem itself. Churn is a problem for you, but not for your customer. Churn is a problem. Churn basically indicates that your customer has another problem. It can be, for instance, that they just simply don't understand how your product works. They don't. They feel like the product that they bought was different to what you were marketing to them, or something along those lines. It can be anything, really. But basically, churn is an indication that something isn't working, and oftentimes, in most cases, it's an indication that you are acquiring wrong customers. You're acquiring poor fit customers. So that's basically the starting point for everything that we're gonna discuss from now on. Yeah. Also follow him on LinkedIn and Twitter. He's awesome. So just to illustrate my point here further, this is what most marketers are looking like. So the first one here, the blue one here, is the big fish, right? Because he's gonna pay $20 more than the other one a month. So this is what a typical marketer would look like. Yeah, I want to get the big fish. I don't care about the smaller ones. But when you look at the lifetime value, if the other customer is churning, if the bigger fish, so to speak, is churning after 1 month, it's not that big fish anymore. Like you basically lost money acquiring that customer, even though it looked like they were going to pay, get you more money. Whereas the other customer that looks like less profitable, when you look at it first, it's actually more profitable because they are happy. They're going to upgrade at some point because they, whatever happens, they're just so happy with your service. They want to go premium or whatever. So this is why you need to understand what these customers want and how they're going to get there. And then you need to help them get there. And this is also where marketing comes to play, because you can't promise something that you cannot deliver. So marketing, customer success, sales, they all have to play towards the same goal. So that's basically my tenet today. But does anyone have any questions at this point, or are you as shocked as I am about the statistics?
I think I'm as shocked as like you are in these statistics, because when you see it like the linear churn, it doesn't look that much. You just see like 5%. Mm-hmm. But when like that doubles and triples because it's not going linear and like it multiples, that is when like it's scary.
Exactly, it's cumulative, and that's the problem in SaaS. It's also a good thing because you enjoy a fresh income every month if you can retain those clients. But if you can't, it's a big problem. So yeah.
I think that is why when you mentioned like, churn is a problem for you and not your customers is like the biggest thing that hit me, because, like it is actually your problem. You have to see what the customer wants and why are they churning and not your sales are churning.
Yeah, exactly. And this is like, I don't know why it's so hard to wrap your head around this, but this is where most companies go wrong. They can't seem to figure out that churn is not a problem for their clients. Churn is an indicator. It's like a symptom, basically. Yeah, that's a very good takeaway.
Yeah, okay, we can.
Yeah, so let's move forward. So let's talk about what are customer insights really, and this is probably my favorite part, and this is what I like to rant about a lot. So this is what a buyer persona card looks like. We've all seen this, we've all used this, we've all tried to use this, and I used to work in another company a couple of years back. Not going to point any fingers on anyone, but. Yeah, and so I'm not going to name the company, but anyways, I used to work in this other company where they were big, they were just fans of, buyer persona cards. And I was a content producer, and I was supposed to produce content for a company or an industry that I was not really familiar with, and that should be okay because like I'm gonna get the buyer persona card, I'm gonna get some background information and so on. But then I got this buyer persona card that was full of information that was not really going to help me. For instance, I knew that the person or persona plays golf and that they have 2 cars in the family, and that his wife is a nurse and that they live in Tampere or whatever. But then I was like, how is this going to help me sell this industrial solution that, costs like hell? And the fact is that it isn't. Like, it didn't help me. It was never going to help me sell it. And I was just struggling with that so much. Like, I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I just don't get it. And if you like fast forward a couple of years, I realized that I wasn't doing anything wrong. The fact is that buyer personas are never going to help you get anywhere, especially in B2B. They still have some use in B2C. I'm not a B2C marketer, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But in B2B, basically, you could just throw them away. You don't need them. You just don't need them. Yet, most of our buyer persona cards or customer insights look like this. So you have a Daniel CDO who's BC educated, business savvy, frugal, whatever, skeptical of vendor claims. But like, then again, who isn't skeptical of vendor claims? Like, everybody knows this. This is obvious. And that's the problem. So buyer personas are so obvious, so general, so they're basically just full of random information that could describe anyone. So that they don't really help you make any decisions. I'm gonna tell a couple of other reasons why they don't help you make informed decisions, but this is the first one that I've realized. Yet most companies are still working with this type of buyer personas. So this is probably a very familiar situation for all of us. So this is our buyer persona, Al, 39-year-old Scorpio, drives an Acura, blah, blah, blah. Okay, how will this help us sell ERP software? Sales is your job. I'm in marketing. Are you sensing a slight disconnect there? Because I definitely am. We're not going to get our different functions aligned if we continue doing this. So a couple of years back, when I realized that, hey, there is a problem, like I just can't keep on doing this. I'm not getting anything out of this. I can't produce a piece of content with the help of this buyer persona card because it's simply not helping me. I realized we just need to do something. And I was working at Advance back then already. This is my third year at Advance, so it was like 2.5 years ago, I think. 2.5 years ago. And together with our colleagues, we started to do some research and wanted to figure out there must be a better way to go about this. And there was. I'm going to reveal that to you in a second. But it really took a lot of time and effort to find that better way to go about getting customer insights. So just a couple of words about what is wrong with buyer personas. So first, buyer personas, as in general, they are just too much based on demographics, such as titles and roles, especially in B2B. You also do things like firmographics, also psychographics. But the one thing that they are lacking is the contextual, meaning problem-specific motivation. So tell me, like, if anyone can tell me, please let me know, but I still haven't figured out the answer. But how is the assumption that the buyer is business savvy or that he's looking to get extra bonus is going to help you sell your CRM or project management tool? Because I have no idea. If somebody knows, please let me know. I have no idea. Okay, the second point is that buyer personas still mainly focus on personas. So in B2B, that's obviously a problem because the context is missing entirely. So they lack information on things like customer segments. So basically, in B2B, some of the companies still segment their customers based on the very superficial things like company size or other firmographic factors, even if those are not the main differentiators. And this is something that I'm going to tell a little bit more about in a minute, but that's it for now. That's a problem. There is no context, basically. And for the same reasons, B2B buyer personas also typically assume that people with the same title, for instance, CEOs or CDOs, are like homogeneous mass. So basically, they are similar people with same motives, same pain points, regardless of the context. So just as an example, if it's an established Fortune 500 company and you have a CEO there, or if it's a fresh high-tech startup with, let's say, an artificial intelligence technology they want to sell to some forerunners, those both are CEOs, but do they have the same context? No. Do they have the same pain points? No. Do they have the same motivations? Do they have the same goals? Do they have, well, the answer is obviously no. So the context, again, is missing. Four, buyer personas only focus on buyers. So basically the rest of the life cycle is just missing. It's just forgotten entirely. And that is kind of funny because especially in SaaS and subscription, it's actually the most important part of the life cycle. What happens after the first conversion? In SaaS, there's multiple conversions. First you become a free trial user, then you become a paid user, then you maybe expand or upgrade to a premium or whatever. So there's so many different conversions and touch points after the first one that if you only think about the acquisition part, hey, sign up for the free trial, whatever, you're missing 90% of the, of everything. So that's a huge problem. And finally, the fifth point, why buyer personas are simply not working in B2B, is that they are just too often pulled out of thin air. And they actually, often are a result of an internal brainstorming session or meeting, and that's kind of terrifying to me. But that really, really happens. And please let me know in the chat if you have ever seen any of this happening in real life, or if you've ever encountered or forced to use buyer persona cards that are simply not helping you to do your job. Please let me know, because I'm just like so curious to know if you're having similar experiences. So these are the 5 main reasons why buyer personas are not working. And I know it's a lot of background information, but it's so much easier to get why I'm recommending what I'm recommending when you know the background first. So that's why I wanted to sort of go through this. So there's a couple of different ways to go about getting better customer insights. I'm presenting you one way that's called jobs to be done. Also, let me know if you know the framework. That's something that I'm kind of interested, because it's very popular in SaaS, but I don't know like how many people are familiar with that. But there's some other ways you can go about that as well. So you can use usage scenarios that are very typical in product development and so on. So jobs to be done is not the only way to do this, but it's the one framework that we have noticed that it's actually working for our B2B SaaS and subscription clients. So that's why I'm using it, but I'm not saying that it's the only way. Remember that. Okay, so just a couple of words about that in general, then I'm going to show you some examples. So basically, there's a couple of, I think I actually said this already. So there's a couple of different examples, ways to go about it. And the idea behind this whole framework, jobs to be done framework, is that people, this is very simplified, remember, but basically the idea is that people hire products and services and solutions to get a certain job done. So essentially, they want to make certain progress within certain specific circumstances. And your product or service comes into play right there. So how your product or service or solution or whatever can help these people make the desired progress. That is in the core of jobs to be done framework. So if you don't take away anything else from this, please remember that that's basically, you don't even have to remember the name of the framework. It doesn't really matter. You can use any framework. The only thing that you need to know is that how you're able to help your potential customers to make the desired progress. That's basically the only thing. Yeah, so, and as you can see, compared to, let's say, traditional buyer persona cards or buyer personas, user personas, marketing personas, that they typically typically consist of permanent attributes such as name, age, title, whatever. But in buyer, when you create or when you get, okay, let me rephrase. When you think about it in terms of jobs to be done, you're not really interested in knowing the title. I mean, it's good to know, it's nice to know, but you rather want to know what's the progress they want to make, and then like under that you can make subcategories like, okay, these people are typically have this and that title, but it's not important because the title can be anything. Sometimes the title makes sense to include there, but oftentimes it doesn't make any sense to include there. Does anyone have any questions at this point or anything you want to ask? Nope. Okay. So this is just basically the basic idea of it. So here's an examples. Here's a couple of examples. I actually had our designer create this amazing illustration of a smoothie. So this is the first example. So imagine you have a smoothie stand. You're selling smoothies, and you want to understand why your customers are buying smoothies. So if you have this, let me go back to this. If you have this, how is the fact that home life is hectic for Joanne as she has all the children and home responsibilities? Okay, fine, that's nice to know. But how is that going to help you help you sell the smoothie or improve the smoothie recipe or whatever, or find a new spot or whatever? Again, it's not going to help you do that. But what is going to help you is this. So you need to understand what they are trying to get done. Again, let's say this is Joanne. So Joanne wants to, she needs her toddler to stay busy when they're shopping so they don't have to shop in a toy store. So basically a smoothie is a replacement for that stop in a toy store. Another example, we don't typically give their names because that's kind of stupid and superficial. You don't need the names. But this guy here and a lot of other people probably don't have time for a proper breakfast, but they still want to stay healthy. So that's one thing. And if you identified a customer segment like this, you would probably launch a new smoothie recipe called something like a healthy breakfast smoothie or something along those lines. But it only makes sense. Like it's not magic. It's basically just knowing your customers. Another example, I want something fun to keep me occupied during my morning commute. So in this case, this guy would probably buy a Snickers bar or like a chocolate bar or whatever, or play a mobile game. But instead, he opts to buy a smoothie because he just wants something to do, basically. So a lot of different reasons, yet all these people in different contexts are buying the same smoothie. So I don't know if this makes sense to you, but it makes perfect sense to me. And when I figured out that there's another way to do this rather than going for buy personas, I was like, oh my God, why did no one tell me about this earlier? That's why I'm here telling you about this. So any questions or comments?
Yeah, I think this makes much more sense than, like any buyer personas. Like you have just bashed like one of the biggest theories of marketing.
Yeah.
But then if you look into this, like, of course, like you have to understand the context. Now you're taking the context of each and every person and each and every customer. And now you understand, okay, so might be the healthy smoothie marketing not work for the guy who wants to have some fun, because that won't work for him, or like not for Joanne also, because I mean she might not be interested in that. But then that exact marketing would definitely and 100% work on the first person.
Definitely. And
And that,
remember, these are customer segments, so there's a ton of
Mhm.
people like that around. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, if anyone doesn't have any more questions, we can move on.
Perfect. Okay, so just as a reminder, so basically what a job to be done essentially means or describes is like a better me. So now that you have this product or service available, what can you do that you couldn't do before? And that's actually kind of a nice way to put it. This is not my image. I took it from online. I have the source somewhere, but forgot to put it here. But this is, I think, this is kind of a cool like explanation of how the framework actually works. So yeah, just as a reminder, from the superficial buyer personas, the shift is clearly towards this like contextual, super problem specific jobs to be done frameworks or similar. All right, so I'm just going to give you a couple of example jobs, and then we can jump on to the next part, which is actually how to go about building one. So not going to spend too much time here. These are actual jobs to be done from our actual clients. So we have a client that builds a video recruitment platform, and we found out that the job to be done of someone who's in charge of a company's recruitment, regardless of the title, as you can see, could be to identify, attract, and recruit the right people for relevant roles within an organization as quickly as possible. And this is kind of a high-level job. It can be very specific if you're B2C. It can be very specific if you have multiple segments. In our case, I think they only have like 2 different segments, so it kind of makes sense to keep it very high level. And for a medical practice management software, I'm having really hard time saying this word, medical practice management software. The job to be done for a business decision maker who works in centralized management of the clinic chain could be to improve and grow their medical business by making better data-driven decisions. So they need to get all the data from all the clinics and so on. So these are actual jobs that we've identified and actually using in marketing. Cool. So how to actually get those actionable customer insights? That's the interesting part. And it's actually surprisingly easy now that you know what you're looking for. it's very hard if you know what you want, but now that you know, it's actually kind of easy. So the first step, as I like to put it, is to actually let go of the old insights. And that's what we've done already. That's the hardest part, to letting go of your old beliefs. The next step would be to define the ideal customer profile, because in B2B, there's always something more than a persona, as I mentioned earlier. It's not just the one person, it's actually a lot of people within a certain context of a certain company, certain market, industry, and so on. The third step would be to conduct both qualitative and quantitative research and only focus on your ICP. So basically, if it's not an ideal customer, don't interview. You're not interested in what they think, because they are not your ideal customer. They're going to churn the second day, remember. The fourth step would be to analyze the results. And finally, the fifth step would be to actually apply the findings in everything you do, not just marketing, but everything. So let's move forward. How you define the ideal customer profile. So basically, there's a couple of different ways to go about it. You can, if you have data, if you have CRM data, if you have product use data, web analytics, whatever, you can actually form a database profile. So just take a look at what customers have the highest growth rates, the highest LTV, or customer lifetime value, or the lowest customer acquisition costs and stuff like that. And then you can reverse engineer your ICP from there. The other option is that you can form a characteristic-based profile. So that means essentially that if you don't have enough data available of real customers, you're just going to take a couple of criteria that apply to your customers and form your ICP based on those. I'm going to explain how that works in a second. And basically, most of the companies are actually forced to do the second option. So most companies don't have enough data, or they don't have the right data, or their data is not clean enough. So they would need to settle for the characteristics-based profile. That's why I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that. So basically, the right criteria for choosing your ideal customer profile. So basically, what does it mean? It means that who do you want to sell to? And you want to sell to customers that are profitable, that are easy to sell to, who don't ask for a lower price, who don't churn easily, who recommend your product or service to their colleagues and peers simply because they're head over heels for it, who intuitively understand the benefits and see the value of your product. Those are the customers that you want to sell to, right? Well, this is not your ICP yet, but this is a list of questions that will help you, or like criteria that will help you narrow down who are your actual ideal customers. So you're going to make a list of actual customers at this point, if you just can. And when you have those customers, let's say you have 10 identified that these customers are actually profitable for us, then you start to dig a bit deeper into why they are profitable. So you can look at things like, okay, so is there, like, does it have something to do with their firmographics, such as tech stack or company size or industry or something like this? But sometimes, and oftentimes, it doesn't have anything to do with those. But instead, it can have, it can be like the criteria that we're looking for here. It can be something like, okay, the company has a certain type of company culture. So, for instance, they only want to purchase open source software that are using open source. For instance, this is just an example. Or they have a recurring need to do something. For instance, they need to book, I don't know, if you were selling or like renting out meeting rooms, they need to rent a meeting room every quarter at least once, or something along those lines. And then you know that, okay, the recurring need is actually the defining characteristics for an ideal customer. It can be basically anything, any changes in the company that indicate change in the need, any social or cultural characteristics, for instance, values, tech forwardness, well, tech stack, I already said, ways of working, can be changes in the environment, can be anything else that happens to be relevant to your business. But basically, the one takeaway from here again is that most often it's not the company size. It's not even necessarily the industry, even though industry is a good thing to keep in mind, as almost always. but it's not necessarily those are like superficial things that we are used to think about. So I'm just going to give you an example again so that you understand how it works. So by the way, I think we are running a bit over time soon, so I don't know if that's a problem.
No, it's fine. But if anyone has any questions in the middle, they can always ask, so that we don't need to have specifically the Q&A at the end, but rather we just go on with the presentation. And if anyone has any questions, they can already ask.
Yeah, sure, that works for me.
Yeah.
Okay, this is again a real example, a real life example. So one of our clients actually founded an artificial intelligence powered SaaS tool / add-on / whatever that removes some manual work from certain financial administration workflows through automation. I don't even know how it works. It's kind of complicated, but basically that's all we need to know at this point. So we found out they were targeting corporate companies to begin with, because a startup wouldn't benefit from the tool. Simply, they just wouldn't benefit from it. So we found out that to benefit from the tool, a company should process at least, I think, 100,000 invoices annually. So that was like the minimum amount. That was the hygiene factor. If they don't do that, they won't benefit from the tool. The thing here, however, is that not all big companies, something funny going on. Not all big companies process an equal amount of invoices annually. So basically, the more complex the industry is, the more invoices the company is likely to process annually. So we could have left it here, basically. Okay, we're targeting corporate companies that process at least 100,000 invoices annually. And that's like the typical ICP, right? But we didn't leave it there. So okay, no idea what's going on. So what we found out is that their ideal customer profile is a corporate company that processes at least 100,000 invoices annually, and they also have an accounts payable team of 2+ people. They also should operate in a complex industry such as leasing or construction. And another thing that we found out when we actually interviewed our clients is that they should have, their CEO should be an early adopter type of the CEO who really wants to reposition their finance department as a forerunner in driving technological change or innovation. And in many corporate companies, the CEOs are not innovators, you can imagine. So basically, had we left it there to the second step, we would have had a perfectly viable description of our potential customers, but we still wouldn't have the information, the most important information, the context and the contextual motivation. So in this case, it would be the CEO wanting to reposition their finance department as a forerunner. And that's a very contextual thing. Not all CEOs really want to do that. So this is where most companies stay. And the second step and the third step, what's called ideal customer profile here, this is where you should be. And this is a crucial step in B2B. In B2C, it's not the same because you don't have a company, you only have the person, or maybe a household, a family. But in B2B, if you skip this step, you're screwed. I'm just saying that, just putting it out there. Okay, so that's the step number 2. So you need to come up with an ICP. It's obviously a bit more complicated than this, but if you want to read more, I've included some links at the end of this presentation, and you can go and read there. So the step number 3 is conducting qualitative and quantitative research. So both are needed. And again, a reminder that you're only going to focus on your ICP. So when you created your ICP, you narrowed down your focus and you left out everything else. That's it. Okay, so here we go. So how do you go about getting the right insights and the right information? So there's a couple of ways to do that. Basically, I'm just gonna give you a couple of primary skills. So if you're an established company and you already have a handful of happy clients, you're gonna do customer research. You're gonna interview your clients and ask them, I'm gonna give you a list of sort of like questions that you can ask if you want to, if this is relevant to you and you want to sort of like do this yourself. But you're going to ask them a couple of questions and you're going to get the answers from there. if you are a startup or you don't have a product market fit yet, if you have a new product, you're expanding to a new market, if you want to reposition your company or anything along those lines, you're going to do customer discovery or development interviews. It's basically interviewing your prospective, or not even prospective, but potential clients, and validating your hypothesis. Or the other way to go about this is to conduct controlled experiments, for instance, with paid acquisition. That's another way. If you are an online business or a subscription business, such as SaaS, self-service, low-touch model, strong online presence, you can also use online sources and customer data, web analytics, paid advertising data, stuff like that. If you are an offline business, service business, if you have a high-touch sales model, a lot of people involved in the process, and a little bit less, or actually a lot less, like online presence, you have a weak online presence typically as well, you're gonna have to go for in-person interviews. So there's like two things you need to think about. Just wanted to add this here because it often causes confusion. And then the second question is, should I do qualitative or quantitative research? And the answer is both. There's pros and cons, because with data research, so to speak, I'm like to call it data research. It's web analytics, ad CRM data, product use data, stuff like this. You're gonna get a lot of insights about what is going on, but you're not going to get insights about why these things are happening. If you look at web analytics, you can clearly see, okay, here's the funnel, here's how people are converting, here's what pages they're looking at, and this is the typical conversion point for most of our, like, I don't know, best leads. But you have still no idea why this is happening. And the why part you're gonna get from in-depth customer interviews. So this is why you always need both. You always need the voice of the customer, but you also need the data analysis. And these two are best. I mean, the best way to go about this is to make sure that you do both and they complement each other. You can use customer feedback, surveys, but I would recommend doing in-depth customer interviews. Yeah, so how do you go about doing the interviews? Rest of those are kind of self-explanatory, not easy, but a bit more sort of like simpler. But I want to sort of like help you understand how to do customer interviews in the light of what you've just learned about jobs to be done, basically. So you're not just going to call someone and ask them, hey, why do you like our product? Actually, you never ask why, because if you ask why, and this is my pro tip as someone who has done probably at least hundreds, if not thousands of interviews, as a journalist as well as a content marketer, never ask why people do something, because they start to rationalize. They start to, yeah, I did that because I wanted to, reach X or get Y done. And that's not typically the truth. They start to make things up when you ask them why. So never ask why. But what you want to understand instead is the following. So basically, the background and context. So what's the core business like? In what context they're operating? What's the market like? What's going on in there? What are the trends and pain points in the market and in the company? How they're using the product, what they're trying to achieve again. What part does your solution, service, or product play in this particular context? What has changed for better after they started using your solution as well? What are the perceived benefits? So this is super important, how they're actually using it. What's the impact on their everyday life? What was the process before, and what were the triggers for change? Why they sort of like decided to look for something entirely different? What was wrong with their earlier solution? Also, what is their stage of awareness in terms of different solutions? So did they know what they were looking for? Another thing that you want to know is how they like to buy. So what's the discovery like? What's the comparison like? How they make the decision? And what's the criteria? How do they discover your product? What does a typical buying process look like? Who's involved? What are their roles? Stuff like this. What do they see as alternatives or competition? Stuff like that. And for the interviews, I actually just have to say it out loud now so that I won't forget. I actually have a handy, like a template for customer interviews. So if you're interested, you can go to Advance B2B .com/blog and find my blog about customer research there, and then just download the templates. That's going to give you a bit more like a more profound understanding of what are the questions that you're actually going to ask them. And finally, if you have time, this is something that I don't always have time for. If it's a 30-minute interview, you want to know where do they go for information? Are they using Facebook? Are they using any social media? What sources they trust? What sources they don't trust? So on. Are they only using WhatsApp and getting recommendations from their colleagues or so on? This is basically what you want to understand to get the comprehensive understanding. And the final point would be to analyze the results. So basically, what you want to do is to transcribe the interviews, and you start seeking patterns in jobs to be done, use cases, contextual motivations, business environment, stuff like that. And this is actually going to help you form actionable customer segments that are not based on firmographics, such as company size. Okay, don't ever do that. And what I would strongly recommend is that use some sort of easily schemable categorization, such as color coding or something else. That's going to help you clean up the memo afterwards or the notes. And here's just an example of color coding from an actual client. So basically, I just categorized them under different use cases, and one of them was reporting. And each color represents a different customer. So this is really going to help you get a bigger picture. When you're analyzing the results, let me see. You finally need to clean up your notes, or you will want to do this, because if you only have random bunch of notes, you're gonna, you can't just send that to your executive team, or you can't send it to your CMO. So what we like to do is that we typically build a slide deck, but you can use any format you like. It doesn't matter. Another good idea is to actually create a Loom video, because everyone has 15 minutes or even 30 minutes to watch a video, and you can speed it up actually. But not everyone is going to go through your 30-page slide deck. So that's my pro tip there. And finally, we won't have time to go into this, but always back up your hypothesis or validate it with quantitative data. So am I looking at the right data set to begin with? And also, is the sort of the data from product from web analytics, is it backing up my hypothesis? It's just an example of how the actual sort of end result could look like, so that it's easy to read and easy to skim through. I assume you can get the slides. I can just send the slides to you, so you can take a look at that if you want. Finally, applying the findings, and this is why we're doing it. I mean, we're not doing it for the sake of doing it. We are doing it for stepping up our marketing game, right, and everything else. So there's a couple of different things you can actually do with your customer insights that you have now gained. You can refine your positioning. You can refine your brand and product messaging and create a new value prop for each one of those segments, because that should be always segment specific, right? You can use that for writing sales and marketing copy. Imagine if you didn't have to come up with the copy. Imagine if you could just take it directly from your customer's mouth. I mean, that's what you can do basically if you have the transcription there. That's what we do for our clients. You can also create a content marketing strategy, come up with content themes and topics. You can pick the right channels. If nobody's using Facebook, why use it? Why would you post anything there? If everybody's into, I don't know, roundtable meetups, maybe that's something to consider, stuff like that. You can also use it for onboarding new employees, at least sales, marketing, customer success, and product. Also, everyone else, I think, should know these things. Also, optimizing product onboarding, because when you know the use case, you know what's the desired outcome when they sign up for the product, and then you know how you should optimize it so that you will help them to get to the end result. Also, prioritizing product development in some cases. Also, oftentimes there you will come up with some immediate action points for different functions, just as a curiosity. Do we have time to go through this, or this is basically the substance I've already covered. I only have a couple of examples here. Do we still have time to go through these, or?
Yeah, I think we can cover for some more minutes. Maybe we can take up extra 5 minutes if everyone is okay with it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to skip a couple of examples and go through a couple of those. So basically, this is an example from one of my favorite marketing agencies called Grow and Convert. They actually had a like a online course, or they still have an online course, which is excellent, by the way. You should sign up. And it was originally positioned so that it was meant for marketers who want to grow their site traffic and drive qualified lead from content marketing. And that sounds reasonable. But when they did customer research, they found out that it's not actually the right positioning and messaging. They actually found out that what people really want that is not driving leads or qualified traffic. They want to become better marketers. So when they changed their positioning, our course become top 1% content marketer, they actually saw a huge increase in demand. And that's a very, very good example of how customer research can actually help you refine your marketing. Another example, I'm just going to skip the rest of this, but this is a good example. So another example is that this is one of our clients, and we did customer research for them, conducted customer research, and we were going to create an ebook about let's say what's it called, like about, don't remember the exact topics, but something entirely else anyways. So we were going to create an ebook about something entirely else, and we had the hypothesis that probably the prospective customers would be interested in cost savings. I think it was cost savings, but when we talked to our clients, we actually figured out that they are not actually that interested in cost savings, or some of them are, but not the most potential target group. The most potential target group was sort of like high-end hotel chains that were not really interested in in cost savings because of the high margins. Like, why would they care if they save a couple of bucks? They don't care. But what they were interested in is sort of like repositioning themselves as forerunners, basically, as someone who really cares about sustainability and stuff like that. So we published this ebook that was created based on the customer insights that we got from the customer research. And they actually got so many leads that they had to stop promoting the ebook for a while because they just couldn't handle the number of leads that got in. So that's another good example. But this is pretty much my presentation for today. I'm sorry, we're running a bit over time. I tend to get a bit excited about this. But if you have any questions, I'm available. I don't have anything else. I don't have a hard stop, so I'm happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, this was actually great. This was amazing. And I also want to ask before we end that if like anyone has any questions later on after the session, like let's say when we produce the videos, would you be available to answer them? Then I would just forward them to you in LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, more than happy to answer.
Mm-hmm.
No questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for being here, everyone. And Anna, thank you so much. This was actually super insightful, and I think it already took all of the sections that we needed to understand, and it's a big mind shift. I think it just doesn't come in one day. You have to talk to a lot to the companies to actually change and think in this way.
Yeah, you tell me. It took a while, but I'm happy to be sharing this knowledge and expertise now that I actually have it. It took me a couple of years to get there, but
and thank you so much for being here.
One
thank you, everyone.
Question.
Oh, there's a question, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like a very extensive process in order to gather the customer insight. What would you say would be like the typical timeline it takes for you to create this ideal customer profile?
Actually, it's not. Yeah, you're right that it seems like an extensive process, and it can be an extensive process if you want to make it so. And that's a good option because that if you do that, if you do all at once, you're gonna have it done. But how we typically work with our clients is that it takes something like 3 weeks to actually get people on the phone and transcribe the interviews and then create a deck and clean up the memos and then present the findings. So that's going to be 3 to 4 weeks, I would say. Sometimes 2 weeks, even if they're very quick. But if you are an in-house marketer, you don't have to make it so big. You can just start interviewing clients and then sort of like do it step by step. So it doesn't have to be a big project, I would say.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank
you. Yes. Well, thank you, everyone. If you have any other questions later on, you can ask in the Digital Marketing Club group of the Facebook, the Shortcut Digital Marketing Club. You can join there and you can ask any questions there, and I would forward those to Anna there.
Yes, please do.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you, Anna and Wakif.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.